So we've been looking through this just massive stack of material today.
Oh, yeah. Decades of it.
Right. I'm talking clinical research papers, FBI behavioral profiling notes, psychiatric case studies on trauma bonding. And looking at all of this together, it points to this really terrifying blind spot in how we view abuse.
It really does. It's a massive blind spot.
Because, usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there is this expectation of precision. Like, if you break your arm, the x-ray shows that jagged white line, right? And the doctor just points to it and says, there it is, broken.
Right. And it's comforting because it's binary. I mean, we inherently like things to be visible. We want to categorize the damage so we can just fix it and move on.
Exactly. But when you step into the world of psychological trauma and neurodevelopment, that x-ray machine is totally useless. We are looking at a diagnostic landscape that is incredibly murky.
Yeah, you can't just point to a scan and say, there's the manipulation.
No, you can't. And that brings us to the core of what we are unpacking in this deep dive today. We essentially want to hand you, the listener, a secret operating manual for identifying an invisible psychological predator.
I like that phrasing. An invisible predator.
Because when you hear the word narcissist, your brain probably supplies this immediate, like almost cartoonish image. You picture the loud, arrogant, dominating person in the boardroom.
Right. The one who brags, who belittles the waiter, who sucks all the oxygen out of the room.
Exactly.
The exhibitionist.
Yeah.
The overt, grandiose narcissist. And frankly, they are incredibly easy to spot. Like if someone is standing on a table demanding applause, you know exactly what you're dealing with.
Yeah, the threat is obvious. But the premise of our deep dive today explores a far more dangerous mystery. I mean, what happens when the most destructive person in your life doesn't scream, but sighs?
Oh, wow.
Right. What happens when grandiosity hides behind a mask of fragile victimhood?
That is the crucial question.
And I really want to set the atmosphere for this because this isn't a discussion about someone who just has, bad communication habits.
No, absolutely not.
We aren't talking about a partner who is just a little selfish on a Sunday. We are essentially walking into a behavioral forensics lab today. We are looking at a systematic, highly effective method of coercive control.
It is a whole operating system.
It is. And by the end of this investigation, you are going to recognize psychological manipulation patterns that most people never see, even after years of exposure.
And we really have to start with this shocking foundational paradox, which is, well, where the grandiose, overt narcissist needs to be seen as great, the covert or vulnerable narcissist needs to be seen as suffering.
Suffering, wow.
Yes, that is their currency. But beneath that suffering, beneath all the tears and the endless crises, they share the exact same entitled self-focus.
So the grandiosity hasn't disappeared at all.
Not at all. It has just turned inward.
Okay, let's put this under a microscope with a real case study. I want to introduce you to Heather.
Let's do it.
So Heather is 41 years old. She runs the emergency department at a level I trauma center. I mean, this is a woman who makes literal life or death decisions under immense pressure every single day.
She's highly capable.
Incredibly capable. She is decisive. She's the person other doctors call when a patient is crashing and they just don't know what to do.
Right.
But on a Sunday morning before her shift, Heather is sitting in her car in the hospital parking garage for 20 minutes, completely paralyzed.
Just phrasing.
Yeah. She cannot make herself unbuckle her seatbelt and go inside.
So let's see the forensics on that moment. I mean, why is a woman who thrives in chaos frozen in a quiet car? Like, what happened the night before?
Right. She is obsessing over a conversation. Her partner told her in a gentle, quiet, almost painfully patient voice that she, quote, always makes everything about herself.
Oof, that's, yeah.
And he wasn't angry, right? He didn't raise his voice. He just looked incredibly sad. Wounded. She had just worked a 12-hour overnight shift, came home exhausted, and found him deeply upset about something she'd allegedly said 2 days earlier.
And she probably doesn't even remember saying it.
She doesn't remember saying it at all. But he remembers it perfectly. And sitting in that car, Heather doesn't question his assessment of her. She questions her own memory. She doubts her own sanity.
That is exactly how it works.
She is wondering if she truly is this terribly selfish, toxic person, despite reading all the books, going to therapy, constantly working on her, communication style.
The contrast here is the clue. You have a highly competent trauma doctor who handles arterial bleeds without flinching, but she is completely immobilized by a quiet comment from her partner.
It's wild when you put it like that.
To understand why she's trapped there, We have to look at the pathology.
Mm.
Theodore Millon, who was a pioneer in personality disorders, he coined the term the closet narcissist.
Okay.
And Dr. Craig Malkin places narcissism on a spectrum. So on one end, you have egoism, which is basically a compulsive self-erasure. These are people who are terrified of taking up any space at all.
Right, they just want to be invisible.
Exactly. And on the far other end, you have the classic grandiose narcissist. But the covert narcissist sits in this incredibly confusing, invisible zone right in the middle. Well, not the middle, but a hidden zone.
Oh, so.
They possess the high entitlement and low empathy of the grandiose narcissist, but it's combined with fragile self-esteem and a perpetual victim orientation.
So, if I'm hearing this correctly, the pivot is that the covert narcissist believes they are uniquely suffering.
Yes.
They're uniquely misunderstood, uniquely unappreciated by a world that is just completely blind to their brilliance and their sensitivity.
That is the core of their identity right there. And that brings us to the actual mechanism of how they control someone like Heather. We call it gentle gaslighting.
Wait, I really want to push back on that term for a second. How exactly do you gaslight someone gently?
It sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it?
It does, because usually when we hear about gaslighting, it's portrayed as this aggressive, forceful denial of reality. It's the husband screaming, "You're crazy, that never happened."
Right, but that is overt gaslighting. Grandiose narcissists gaslight through force, through contempt, through sheer volume. Covert narcissists, though, they gaslight through woundedness.
Through woundedness.
Yeah. They don't overpower your reality, they undermine it with concern. Let's look at a specific phrase line by line.
Okay, let's do it.
Imagine your partner's size looks at you with deep therapeutic concern and says, "I'm really worried about you. You seem to be under a lot of stress lately. Are you sure you're remembering that correctly?"
Oh, wow. Okay, if we pause and analyze just that sentence on the surface, what was said is an expression of care. Like if a microphone recorded that, it sounds like a totally supportive partner.
That is exactly why it is so insidious. The literal words offer support, but what was meant is entirely different.
What's the invisible translation?
The translation is, you are mentally unstable, your perception of my bad behavior is just a symptom of your cognitive decline, and therefore your reality cannot be trusted.
That is chilling. And the target of that manipulation is brilliant because the target isn't Heather's weakness. The target is her innate desire to be fair and self-reflective.
Exactly.
Because Heather is a person who takes responsibility, right? She's a doctor. She lives by the scientific method. So she immediately turns that lens inward. She thinks, well, I've been working a lot. Am I stressed? Did I misremember?
She actually executes the gaslighting on herself.
Exactly. She does their work for them.
And this is a massive misconception we have to destroy right now. As a society, if we see someone crying, if they are acting sensitive and wounded, we automatically assume they are emotionally dysregulated or just deeply hurt.
Right. We view tears as proof of harmlessness.
But we need to realize that in the hands of a covert narcissist, they aren't dysregulated at all. They might be executing precise emotional control. Their tears can literally be a mechanism of dominance.
That makes me think of an analogy from Lundy Bancroft. He wrote extensively on abusive dynamics, and he describes a behavioral profile he calls the water torturer.
Oh, I know this one. It's so accurate.
Yeah, this is the abuser who stays perfectly calm, perfectly reasonable, completely monotone. They just drip, drip, drip.
Just tiny invisible needles.
Exactly. They push and provoke the victim with these tiny needles until the victim finally snaps. And then, when the victim is crying or yelling out of sheer exhaustion and frustration, the abuser sits back, looks at them with wide eyes, and says, "See, look how out of control you are."
I'm just sitting here trying to have a calm conversation.
And you are being hysterical.
It is entirely maddening because it is a systematic inversion of reality. The person reacting to the abuse is labeled the abuser.
Which raises an enormous question. Why do covert narcissists target people like Heather? I mean, why go after a level A trauma doctor?
You'd think they'd avoid someone like that?
Right. You would think a psychological predator would seek out someone who is inherently weak or submissive or just easily subdued.
And that is such a major escalation in how we need to view this. They don't want someone weak. They target the absolute strongest, most empathetic, most driven people.
They target the givers.
Always. They specifically hunt for highly capable individuals, often women, who operate with what we can call the good girl override.
Oh, let's break that down. Where does that override actually come from?
It is almost always rooted in childhood. specifically things like the gifted child syndrome or parentified child dynamics.
Right. So adults who, when they were very young, were taught that love is conditional on managing other people's emotional states.
Exactly. They had a volatile parent or a depressed parent or just a highly demanding environment. So they learned early on to scan the room, to anticipate needs, to smooth over conflicts.
And to fix problems to earn affection. Their nervous system is just wired to believe that if someone they love is unhappy, it is their job to solve it.
And the covert narcissist weaponizes that exact empathy. The narcissist's chronic wounds, their endless tales of being wronged by the world, it looks like a problem the driven woman is uniquely equipped to solve.
Which perfectly explains the initial seduction phase. Because a covert narcissist doesn't do the overt love bombing, right? They don't rent a yacht or brag about their Rolex or try to overwhelm you with status.
No, that would actually turn someone like Heather off.
It totally would. Instead, they seduce with intense therapeutic language. They will sit across from you on date 2, look deeply into your eyes, and just share their most intimate childhood traumas.
Yes. Let's do the behavioral forensics of that early phase because it is wild.
Let's do it.
Have you ever been on a date where the person immediately starts talking about their abandonment wounds or how terribly their ex treated them, and they look at you and say, "I've never felt safe enough to tell anyone this before"?
Oh, man. What is actually happening in that moment?
Well, we interpret it as vulnerability. We think, wow, this person is so emotionally intelligent and open.
But it's not vulnerability.
It is a data gathering mission. They are throwing out emotional bait and identifying your empathy triggers.
Yeah.
They are closely watching your facial microexpressions to see exactly how you respond to their pain.
Do you lean in? Do you try to comfort them? Do you feel protective?
Exactly. And once they map your empathy system, once they know exactly what makes you feel guilty or responsible, they catalog those triggers to deploy them against you months or years later.
That is so calculated. And here's where it gets really interesting, specifically regarding what they are extracting from you. We really need to talk about the currency of this realm, which is narcissistic supply.
Right, supply.
An overt narcissist gets supply from public adoration. They want the applause of a crowd. But the covert narcissist needs something much more specialized.
They need associative supply, and they need emotional regulation.
Explain the associative part.
So Dr. Eleanor Greenberg points out that a closet narcissist will deliberately attach themselves to a brilliant, successful partner. They want the status of being with a high-achieving doctor like Heather.
Oh, so they feed off that partner's success in public. It makes them look good by association.
Exactly. But here is the twisted part. In private, that exact same success threatens their fragile ego. It constantly reminds them of their own perceived inadequacies.
So what do?
They systematically undermine the partner behind closed doors. They deploy the ambient criticism, the subtle put-downs, the sighing over small mistakes.
Just chipping away at them.
Slowly, yes. They
Ah.
chip away the partner's self-worth, so the partner becomes too insecure to ever realize they can do better. The narcissist drains the partner's emotional, cognitive, and physical resources just to regulate their own unstable self-esteem.
They essentially use you as an external emotional regulator.
Precisely.
Okay, but this brings up a massive unresolved question. I can hear the listener thinking it right now.
I know what you're going to ask.
If the victim is so successful, so smart, capable of running a trauma ward or leading a company, why don't they just leave when the mask slips?
Right, why stay?
Yeah. When the subtle put-downs start, why doesn't Heather just say, "This is toxic, I'm out," and walk away? What is physically keeping her trapped in that parking garage?
This is perhaps the most game-changing perspective shift we can offer today.
I agree.
We have to stop looking at this as a psychological puzzle. We have to stop viewing it as a character flaw or a weakness on the victim's part. It is not a cognitive failing.
It is a physiological addiction.
A literal physical addiction.
Let's lean heavily into the clinical neuroscience here, pulling from the work of trauma experts like Bessel van der Kolk. We have to understand the concept of intermittent reinforcement.
Like B.F. Skinner's variable ratio schedules.
Exactly. I use a specific analogy for this. Imagine you walk up to a vending machine. You put your money in, you press the button, and you get a soda. It happens every single time.
It is perfectly predictable.
Now imagine you walk up to that same machine, you put your money in, and nothing comes out. The machine is broken. What do?
You walk away.
Right. You might kick the machine once, but you leave. You don't stand in front of a broken vending machine for 5 years, crying and putting quarters in, hoping it will change its mind.
But a relationship with a covert narcissist is not a vending machine. It is a slot machine.
Exactly. A slot machine is entirely unpredictable. You put in a coin, you pull the lever, you get nothing. You put in another, nothing. You put in 10 more, nothing.
And then suddenly,
Suddenly, bells ring, lights flash, and the machine pours coins out. That unpredictability, the variable ratio of the reward, it hooks the brain's dopamine circuitry far more intensely than a guaranteed reward ever could.
and the covert narcissist operates exactly like this. They oscillate between intense warmth, deep connection, and sudden icy withdrawal.
And that cycle literally wires the victim's brain for addiction.
And we really can't overstate the physical reality of this. Stephen Porges' concept of neuroception describes the body's subconscious threat detection system.
It's the radar beneath your conscious thought.
Right. In these relationships, the victim's nervous system actually senses danger. The body feels the ambient hostility, the ambiguous reality distortion, the passive aggression.
Your heart rate variability changes, your digestion slows down.
Yes, but your thinking brain, your prefrontal cortex, overrides those bodily alarms.
I really want to pause on that. Why does a smart human brain override its own survival alarms? Like, do we really fall for the same conditioning as a rat in a cage?
We do, and it's because of the specific camouflage the covert narcissist uses. The survival brain says, danger, run. But the thinking brain looks at the partner and sees them crying.
Or sees them acting sensitive and misunderstood.
Right. So the thinking brain rationalizes, he's not a threat, he's not hitting me, he's just in pain. If I abandon him, I'm a bad person.
The cognitive empathy hijacks the somatic warning system.
Completely.
And the result of that hijacking is horrifying. Because when the narcissist withdraws, when they give you the silent treatment or look at you with subtle, chilling disapproval, the victim experiences literal drug withdrawal.
I mean that biologically.
Yes. You experience a massive cortisol panic. The anxiety in your chest is unbearable, and your nervous system learns that the only way to stop that painful cortisol spike is to secure the dopamine hit of the abuser's return.
You have to apologize. You have to fix it.
You become biologically dependent on the exact person who is causing your pain because they hold the antidote.
Which leads us to a phenomenon Dr. Jennifer Freyd calls betrayal blindness.
No.
When you depend on someone for your emotional, practical, or financial survival, when your primary attachment system is entirely bound up in them, your brain will actively suppress its own awareness of the anus.
Wait, explain how the brain actually suppresses reality. Like, what is happening mechanically in the head?
It has to do with disrupting the default mode network, or the DMN.
Okay.
The DMN is a network of interacting brain regions that is active when you are thinking about yourself, reflecting on your past, or imagining your future. It basically maintains your continuous, coherent sense of self.
So it's who you are.
Exactly. But trauma and chronic emotional abuse severely disrupt the DMN. Your brain realizes that acknowledging the abuse will destroy the attachment, and destroying the attachment feels like a threat to your literal survival.
So your brain chooses not to know.
Yes. Losing yourself, forgetting who you are, feeling crazy, these aren't signs of weakness. It is your brain's extreme defense mechanism, prioritizing attachment and survival over accuracy.
This brings us to a concept I call the both-and paradox. This is where the cognitive dissonance hits the absolute hardest for victims.
It really is.
I want to challenge everyone listening to try and hold two completely conflicting truths at the exact same time. The abuser can be genuinely kind, loving, and a seemingly wonderful parent in some moments. They can make you laugh, they can be brilliant.
Right.
And the systematic reality distortion is profoundly structurally harmful.
We get so caught up in intent, don't we? Victims will constantly say, but I don't think they are doing it on purpose. They genuinely feel victimized.
All the time.
What's vital to understand here is that the harm is in the impact, not the intent. The abuser might not wake up in the morning, rub their hands together like a cartoon villain, and plot to destroy your sanity.
Right.
But their core entitlement, their fundamental unshakable belief that their emotional reality must dictate the entire atmosphere of the household, that causes massive neurobiological damage to their partner over time.
So if they aren't yelling or throwing things, what does this actually look like in a living room on a Tuesday night? We need to expose the hidden layer here.
Yes, let's get into the tactics.
Let's unpack the specific, invisible tactics they use daily. Let's do some extensive behavioral forensics on the specific guises of reality distortion. Let's look at tactic 1, the chronic low-grade complaint.
Oh, this is one of their most prevalent tools. It is a persistent, ambient dissatisfaction with external forces.
Like what?
They come home and the traffic was awful. Their boss is out to get them, their friends are disappointing, the waiter was rude.
But it's never actually about the traffic, is it?
Never. The traffic is just the vehicle. It is about establishing their dissatisfaction as the organizing emotional gravity of the home.
Ah.
When they walk in with that dark cloud, it forces the driven problem-solving partner to immediately start managing the environment.
You lower your voice, you get them a drink, you try to soothe them.
You are constantly trying to fix an unfixable mood, which absorbs all of your energetic bandwidth. You have absolutely no energy left to focus on your own life or your own grievances.
And if you ever do try to bring up your own grievance, you are hit with tactic 2, which is darview.
Deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender.
Exactly. Have you ever walked out of a room apologizing to someone and realized 10 minutes later that you were the one who originally got hurt? That's darvio.
Let's look at a case study for this one.
Okay. Let's look at Leah. Leah is a nonprofit executive. She is incredibly articulate. She goes into couples therapy specifically to confront her partner about a behavior that hurt her deeply. Let's say he repeatedly undermined her parenting in front of their kids.
Very common.
Right. So she has her notes. She's ready. But 45 minutes later, Leah leaves the session apologizing to him for making him feel bad about her bringing it up.
So let's put that therapy session under the forensic microscope. What actually happened in that room?
What did he do?
Well, Leah raised a valid behavior-specific concern. Now, an overt narcissist would have yelled, "I never did that, you're a liar."
Right.
But the covert narcissist does something far more sophisticated. He didn't yell. Instead, his posture probably collapsed. He looked devastated.
He plays the victim.
Yes. He might have looked at the therapist with tears welling in his eyes and said in a trembling voice, "I try so hard to be a good father, but nothing I do is ever enough for Leah. I'm just so overwhelmed by her constant criticism. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells."
Look at the sheer brilliance of that manipulation. He denied the impact of his action by ignoring it completely. He attacked her delivery by labeling it constant criticism.
And he completely reversed the roles of victim and offender.
The substance of Leah's original complaint, the undermining of her parenting, was entirely erased from the room.
Completely gone.
The new urgent focus became his profound suffering caused by Leah's harshness.
And here's the tragedy of it. The therapist, if they are not specifically trained in covert coercive control, will likely fall for it.
They do.
All the time. They see a crying, vulnerable man and a rigid, frustrated woman. The therapist leans forward, nods sympathetically at him, and turns to Leah and asks, "Leah, can you see how your tone might be impacting him?"
Which is devastating. Leah shrinks in her chair, the good girl override kicks in, and she does the gaslighting to herself. She thinks, "I am too harsh, I'm a monster."
And it works every time.
Which leads perfectly into tactic 3, gold medal sympathy seeking and emotional invisibility. I see this constantly in my practice. The victim's entire emotional landscape is completely flattened.
Oh, yes.
Like, if the victim has a headache, the narcissist immediately has a migraine. If the victim had a terrible day at work, the narcissist had an existential crisis.
They are, as Dr. Romani Durvasula so brilliantly calls them, black holes of empathy.
They absorb unlimited amounts of emotional labor, patience, and care without ever emitting a single photon of genuine reciprocity.
They cannot tolerate you being the center of attention, even if that attention is just sympathy for a cold.
And if you stop providing that endless sympathy, they initiate tactic 4, supply hunting.
Which often manifests as the emotional affair.
Talk about that.
Covert narcissists usually don't seek supply through overt public grandstanding or brazen physical affairs that could ruin their good guy image. They seek it via one-on-one emotional intensity with third parties.
Right.
It might be a low-grade flirtation with a coworker, an intense mentorship with a younger colleague, or a deep misunderstood friendship where they constantly share their woes.
What is the invisible transaction taking place when they do that? Like, why do they need that specific dynamic?
They are accomplishing two things at once. First, they are securing an alternative, fresh source of validation from someone who hasn't yet seen behind the mask.
Someone who still thinks they're perfect.
Exactly. But more importantly, they are weaponizing that relationship against their primary partner. They intentionally let you see just enough of it to create a persistent undertow of uncertainty.
Oh, that's cruel.
They might casually mention how much this coworker really understands their stress. It keeps you, the partner, completely off balance.
You are silently competing for basic affections, sensing that the narcissist's emotional investment is steadily leaking somewhere else.
And if you confront them about it, they used Darvo again.
She's just a friend who listens to me. Why are you so insanely jealous and controlling?
Exactly that.
And when the partner tries to assert a boundary around that or tries to assert any competing need, they are hit with the ultimate weapon, the silent treatment.
The silent treatment, yeah.
I really want to spend some time on this because we often misunderstand it. I need to emphasize this to anyone listening who has endured it. The silent treatment in this dynamic is not a retreat for self-regulation.
No, not at all.
It is not someone maturely saying, I am flooded right now. I need a 20-minute timeout to calm down so we can talk productively.
No, it is a highly calculated punitive strike. It is deployed precisely to induce that high-grade somatic anxiety, that cortisol panic we talked about earlier.
They withdraw their presence, their affection, and their communication to force the victim to capitulate.
They will walk around the house like you are a ghost. They will look right through you.
It is coercive control executed through absence.
Yes.
Which brings us to the ultimate absence, the final escalation. The long-term consequences of this dynamic inevitably culminate in the discard and the hoover.
The discard phase it's brutal.
I want to talk about the chilling nature of the discard, the terrifying speed of it. Let's look at another case study. Let's look at Monique.
Okay.
Monique is a hospitalist, incredibly sharp, deeply devoted to her husband of 6 years. They had a perfectly normal, happy Saturday morning at the farmer's market. They bought vegetables. They laughed.
Sounds lovely.
By Sunday evening, he is suddenly monosyllabic. By Tuesday, he sits her down and ends the 6-year marriage with the flat, transactional tone of a corporate firing.
A warning.
No tears, no explanation, just this isn't working for me anymore.
This specific phase is a massive revelation for many victims, and it is usually the thing that breaks them completely. Dr. Ramani Durvasula provides the crucial insight we need here. The discard is a supply decision. It is not a love decision.
Let that sink in for a moment. What does that actually mean?
Well, a neurotypical person ends a relationship because of a breakdown in love, trust, or compatibility, and it is accompanied by mutual grief.
Right, there's sadness.
But the covert narcissist terminates the relationship abruptly for completely mechanical reasons. They leave when your capacity to provide endless validation is finally exhausted.
Or they leave because a new, highly responsive source of supply, like that deep friendship coworker, has been fully secured.
Exactly. Or they leave because your growing clarity and boundaries suddenly threaten their control. If you start calling out their gaslighting, you are no longer a viable regulatory object.
So you weren't left because you weren't enough. You were left because you were no longer a useful appliance.
That is exactly it.
That reframing is devastating, but it's so necessary. It explains the disturbing cognitive dissonance of Monique's situation. Monique is functioning perfectly at work, managing complex medical emergencies on the floor, but she literally cannot get off her bathroom floor at home.
She is physically paralyzed.
The person who demanded absolute deep emotional enmeshment, who claimed she was his soulmate, just turned off his attachment to her like flipping a light switch.
And she is searching for the grief in him, but there is no mutual grief for the narcissist to suppress. They just seamlessly plug into the new supply and move on.
Recovering from that abrupt severance is a brutal psychological journey. Victims generally move through a very specific chronological evolution of post-discard recovery. It starts with shock and disorientation.
Right? The victim experiences the profound vertigo of a vanished reality.
For years, you were in a state of chronic hypervigilance, anticipating their needs. Suddenly, that person is gone.
Your nervous system actually grieves the early warmth, but it severely struggles to organize around a reality that no longer exists.
And the next phase of that journey is what I call the grief paradox. You realize you are grieving the performed version of the partner, that intense soulmate persona from the love bombing phase.
Not the actual person who just fired you from the relationship.
Exactly. You have to cognitively hold the horrifying realization that the person you miss the most didn't actually exist in a stable way. They were a mirror reflecting your own empathy back at you.
Which leads right into gaslight withdrawal.
Tell me about that.
This is perhaps the strangest phase. It is the terror of having your own reality back. After years of having your perceptions corrected, of being told your memory is faulty, treating your own observations as reliable data, again feels deeply frightening.
You don't trust yourself to make a decision about what to eat for dinner, let alone who to trust.
Right. And as that fog clears, you hit the rage that scares you. This is when the anger that was strictly forbidden during the relationship finally surfaces at full volume. You realize what was taken from you.
But the psychological task here isn't to suppress that rage, because suppressing it is what you did for years.
The task is to let it surface in a safe container with a therapist or in a journal without letting it consume your new life, which allows you to move into the slow reclaiming of self.
You start rebuilding your identity incrementally.
You start noticing what pieces of yourself you quietly handed over to manage their reality, your hobbies, your friendships, your confidence, and you deliberately take them back.
And, ultimately, you reach the new template. You identify what you actually need from love, moving completely away from the trauma-bonded templates of the past. You learn that peace is not boring.
But navigating this recovery is almost always interrupted by a very specific, highly predictable trap.
Hoover.
Oh, hoovering, named after the vacuum cleaner because they try to suck you back in.
It's so accurate. This usually happens 6 to 12 months post-exit. It happens right when the victim's acute crisis has softened, right when you are finally sleeping through the night and the painful memories are starting to regulate. Suddenly, your phone buzzes.
The narcissist reaches out.
Let's do the forensics on this text message. It is a Tuesday afternoon, and the text just says, "I drove past our old coffee shop today. I was just thinking about you. Hope you're okay."
It looks so innocent.
So innocent. What was said? A wistful, caring check-in. What was meant, as psychoanalyst Daniel Shaw beautifully explains, "My new supply is failing. They're demanding too much of me. Let me check if my old regulatory object is still on the hook."
Let me see if I still have access to that bandwidth.
It is not motivated by sudden regret or a resurgence of love. It is entirely motivated by their own internal dysregulation. They need a hit of validation.
And the trap is deeply physiological. When you read that text, your somatic memory retrieves the love bombing encoding first.
Your body remembers the intense relief of their warmth before it remembers the panic of their silent treatments.
You experience an intense physical rush. If you aren't prepared for it, if you don't understand the mechanics of the Hoover, that single text message pulls you right back into the cycle.
Which is why we have to discuss the defense protocol. How do you protect yourself? If you can go strict, no contact, you absolutely must block the numbers, block the social media.
But what if you can't?
Right. What if you share children and have to co-parent? What if this person is your boss or a family member you cannot entirely escape?
This brings us to a brilliantly counterintuitive truth. How do you fight back against a covert psychological predator who feeds on your emotional reactions? You defeat them by becoming incredibly, agonizingly boring.
Ah, the gray rock method.
Yes. You become as uninteresting, unresponsive, and unengaged as a gray rock on the ground. You offer zero emotional feedback.
How do you execute that?
It is highly specific. Monotone voice. Minimal eye contact. You share no good news because they will ruin it. You share no bad news because they will weaponize it. You only discuss logistics.
Let's look at Priya as an example. She is at a custody exchange with her covert narcissist ex-husband. He thrives on making these handoffs difficult to ruin her weekend. But Priya has mastered gray rock.
Okay.
She walks up, keeps her face entirely neutral, and uses exactly 4 sentences. Here is her bag. Her medication is inside. She needs to be back by 5 p.m. Sunday. Goodbye.
Perfect.
Right. He might immediately throw a barb about her parenting. He might casually mention his new girlfriend to spark jealousy. Or he might sigh dramatically and talk about how depressed and tired he is, fishing for her ingrained empathy.
But Priya does not react.
No. She gives him zero emotional data to feed on. She becomes a smooth surface that he cannot attach his hooks to.
It is highly effective. But this raises a massive clinical warning that we must address. Gray rock is deeply dangerous if it is misunderstood. It requires emotional containment, not emotional suppression.
Emotional containment.
Yes, emotional containment means you are processing your real, valid emotions safely elsewhere. You are venting to your therapist, crying with a trusted friend, or raging in a journal.
You are being emotionally strategic. You are making a conscious decision that this profoundly unsafe person does not get the privilege of accessing your interior life.
The danger is that if you gray rock too long, without an outlet, that emotional flatness spreads. It infects the healthy relationships in your life. You lose connection to your own joy, your own spontaneity, and your own authentic responses.
You lose your inner self.
Exactly. Gray rock is a temporary bridge. It is a tactical survival mechanism, not a permanent destination. If you find yourself having to gray rock every single day in your own home, it is a glaring sign that the structural reality of your life needs to fundamentally change.
That is such an important distinction. And if we pull back and reflect systemically on all of this, we have to look at the cultural
You
implications.
do.
We have to ask why certain people, particularly women, are historically socialized to be the perfect targets for this manipulation. The good girl override we discussed earlier isn't a biological accident.
No, society actively trains women to read the room, to smooth things over, to absorb ambient tension, and to prioritize harmony over their own boundaries.
Exactly. Society tells women that being loving means being endlessly accommodating. The covert narcissist simply weaponizes society's existing playbook.
They use the cultural mythology of the emotionally sensitive, misunderstood man to frame your valid boundaries as evidence of your lack of empathy.
When they sigh and say, "You're just too harsh, you're too demanding," they are activating a script that society has been rehearsing with you since you were a little girl. They are using your own culturally instilled guilt to keep you in line.
And the gray rock method itself is a vivid, tragic illustration of the uneven emotional labor expected of victims.
Think about what we are asking victims to do. You have to perform emotional invisibility just to stay psychologically safe.
It's an effective tool, but no one should have to live in a perpetual state of tactical emotional deadening just to survive contact with someone who once claimed to love them.
Okay, let's synthesize this entire psychological experience. We have taken you deep beneath the surface today. You have just uncovered the invisible operating system of the covert narcissist.
You now know that their vulnerability is not a bid for connection, it is a weapon of control.
You know that your deep empathy is their most prized supply. You know that the confusion, the self-doubt, the paralysis Heather felt in that parking garage was never a character flaw. It was a conditioned neurobiological response to systematic reality distortion.
If you recognize these patterns in your past, or if a chill went down your spine because you recognize them in your present, whether it is in a romantic partner, a parent, a lifelong friend, or a boss, you need to hear this clearly.
You are not crazy and you are not alone.
The quiet, invisible harm of gentle gaslighting is real harm.
Naming the abuse, dissecting its mechanics exactly as we've done today, is the first critical step to completely dismantling its power over you.
Really is.
So to bring us all the way back to where we started, that medical x-ray machine might not work for psychological trauma, but you don't need an x-ray when you finally know how to read the behavioral forensics.
You really don't.
And as we leave you today, my expert friend here has a final lingering question for you to mull over, something for you to explore on your own after this deep dive ends.
We spend so much of our time and energy analyzing who the covert narcissist really is behind their mask. We dissect their hidden motives. We analyze their childhoods. We try to soothe their endless insecurities.
Right.
But the far more important question for you right now is, who did you have to become to survive them? And what incredible, vibrant, powerful parts of yourself are just waiting to be rediscovered the moment you finally stop managing their reality?